More with Joe Kissell on taking control of your online privacy. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by the new MacVoices Discord, available to all of our MacVoices patrons. Sign up and join in the conversation in your new favorite online group at patreon.com/MacVoices. You took my third question from me because what I was going to say is that you have said a couple times that information can be used against you. And I was going to say, well, okay, so I'm seeing more ads or I'm seeing ads for this or that, but I don't happily find anyone knocking down my door at the moment anyway. And you've used great examples of, okay, so maybe they're not knocking down your door. Maybe they could, depending on what they come to believe about you. So it is something that you need to pay attention to.
And I just want to say, I tell a little story in the book. We talked about Facebook already, and there's a whole chapter in the book that talks about smart objects, the Internet of Things, smart TVs, smart speakers, all the smart things, smart cars, right? And all these objects that connect to the internet and are supposed to be smart are actually, gathering information about you. And smart speakers are like a pretty big thing. Like I have a HomePod here, which I honestly hardly ever use. But a lot of people have, whether it's, like an Amazon Echo something or a Google something or whatever, there are a bunch of different smart speaker brands out there, but they have these all around to play music or ask for the weather or do things. So I have a relative who we had like a family gathering. We're just chatting about stuff, and she was saying, well, yeah, I have an Echo Dot in every room of my house. Oh, actually, I just realized that there were a couple of rooms I didn't have them in, so I just ordered more. So that literally there is no place in her house that she can go that she can't just ask for some music to be played or whatever she wants. And I was kind of like, I hate to be a buzzkill, right? I hate to be Uncle Joe. We were having fun until you had to bring up online privacy. But I'm like, okay, so you understand, right, that all these smart speakers that are in every room of your house are listening to every sound that happens in every room of your house all the time. And you might think, well, they're waiting for me to say Alexis or Siri or whatever the code word is, but the only way they can recognize those words is to literally listen all the time. All that information is going somewhere. All of the speech that it hears is being turned into text instantly in real time, and Amazon has it, or Google has it, or whoever has it. It's in the cloud, and you read the privacy policies, and the idea you have in your head is, well, but it's just computers listening to this for just this one purpose. Nothing bad could ever happen with that information. And I just want to say, really? Are you 100% sure about that? Because I think I can find a couple of news articles that provide counterexamples. The fact is, you don't know. You don't know that at that moment that you're discussing your plans to take over the world or whatever, that some Amazon or Google engineer might not have been fiddling with something and they hear the audio that you spoke, or it's recorded someplace and stored without your knowledge. There could be some really, really disastrous consequences to literally anything you say in the privacy of your own house being known by other parties. So just as I wouldn't put a microphone in every room of my house and have it all sent to a loudspeaker on the sidewalk, I really don't. Oh, sorry for that. didn't mean it. No, that's actually one of these. But I wouldn't want to just let Amazon know everything that I'm saying. So we're having this whole conversation, and someone else in the room, a niece of mine, got this like really serious and sad look on her face, like, okay, but Uncle Joe, um, suppose we have been doing this sort of thing, freely sharing everything on Facebook and freely sharing everything with Alexa or whoever for years. Isn't it kind of too late? Like, all that information about me is out there. So shouldn't I just like give up and keep doing it? And I was like, okay, you can't unmurder someone, but it's never too late to stop murdering more people. And like, okay, I was deliberately kind of, over exaggerating the situation, but my point is, it's too bad that you gave away that information. You might wish you hadn't, and you can't take that back. It's out there, but it's never too late to stop sharing more, because the more data you share and the longer you share it, the greater the consequences could be. So at least stop doing it now.
Ah, boy. It's a tough thing, Joe. And look, up to this point, I've been playing straight man, obviously. I hope it's obvious. But we get into an area where you really do struggle, because you have to be giving up certain pieces of information in order to benefit from these services. And so, if I'm trying to think of the best example probably is what my phone does. On certain days, I will get in the car and, plug in, and my phone will tell me it's an hour or it's 10 minutes to this particular destination, because it's learned that that's what I do. So somewhere that information is being processed, whether it's on device or in the cloud or whatever, but it still is available somehow. And so that's another argument that I hear. It's like, well, but I like this service. I like this convenience. And how do you balance out the convenience versus what you're giving up to receive that convenience? And there's some obvious examples here that you've given that are extreme, but when it gets to something that most people would think are kind of a bit more innocuous, how do you strike that balance?
That's a great question, and that's let me just parenthetically say, look, I know all of this is a real downer. I mean, this isn't one of those cheery, joyful topics like take control of your online legacy, where we're talking about death. No, this isn't like that. This is this is bleak. Look, and I know it's bleak, and so. As I've said, one of the things I'm trying to do throughout this whole book is to say, look, I know it's bad. I know it's bad. And I also know how you're going to react to these things that I'm telling you. And I don't want you to have a miserable existence. I don't want you to live without those conveniences and affordances that really make your life better. I really, really, really understand that. And I'm not telling you to put all of your electronic devices into a blender and then go live in a cave someplace. I'm not telling you that. I want you to make decisions as you use your devices and as you buy things and as you choose services that do strike as much of a balance as possible between privacy and convenience. I just want you to know what you're getting into. Okay, so one thing that for the audience of MacVoices, I probably goes without saying, most of us are probably Apple users. And that's a great thing, because on the whole, Apple's privacy story is way better than Google's privacy story, or Microsoft's privacy story, or Amazon's privacy story. There are notable exceptions. Okay, I get that. But on the whole, Apple is more careful with your privacy than a lot of companies. So given the choice, will I trust my data to Google or will I trust my data to Apple? If I have to make a binary choice, I'm always going to opt for Apple. And it's not just because of their marketing and the great web pages of look at all these privacy features, but it's because I know that Apple isn't depending for their insane amount of revenue on ads. They make a little bit of money from ads, but they make the vast majority of their money from all of these Apple products I'm surrounded with that I keep sending them money for, you know? So they have a financial motivation to actually carry through on their privacy policies. Are they perfect? Certainly not. Apple has had plenty of lapses, but they are way, way, way better than the likes of Google and Facebook. So that's just one thing I'll say. The other thing I'll say is that something is better than nothing. So if you can install ad blockers, if you can, um, you know, we all like to say, well, just Google it, right? You want to find out something, just Google it. But you don't have to Google it. You can DuckDuckGo it. You can Cuggy it. You could, like, there are other search engines out there that will provide you just as useful information while not sucking up all of your personal data into this big machine. You can choose to use those. Instead of using Gmail, you could opt for an actual paid email account that isn't going to expose any of your data to Google. You can actually pay for search. Instead of using Google Docs, you can use something that you pay for that does the same thing. Almost all of those things that we get for free, if we were to pay for an alternative, we could protect our privacy more. So absolutely, clamp down whatever privacy settings you're allowed to clamp down. Absolutely go a step further with things like ad blockers and secure DNS services, which I talk about in the book, and VPNs, which whole thing. But anyway, I talk about the good, bad, and ugly of VPNs in the book. So there are all these steps that you can take that have very little impact on your convenience. They might cost you a little bit of money. They might require another step or two here or there, but do what you can, and you will be farther ahead than the vast majority of people who literally do nothing. And that's got to count for something.
I don't want to get into a long list here of things, but in the book, do you provide recommendations for some of those services, the alternative services?
Yes, I do. So I talk about alternative. I spend a lot of time talking about browsers that are not Chrome, and I talk about alternative search services and email and so forth. Of course, one of the things that unfortunately I encounter a fair number of times looking into this topic is companies kind of unexpectedly turning evil. So in an earlier version of this book, I mentioned, so there's this whole discussion of VPN, virtual private networks, and I don't think we want to add a half hour to this interview to talk about those in the detail they probably deserve. But I happened to recommend a particular VPN provider. There are hundreds of them that I had heard really good things about, and they seemed to have really good policies, and everything was pretty solid with them as far as I knew. Then a reader wrote to me and he said, Joe, you might want to go read this article. And I read that article. I'm like, oh. So this particular nameless VPN provider that I had previously recommended was purchased by a company best known for creating spyware. And it's not just that this company bought this formerly seemingly honorable VPN provider. They also bought a bunch of other VPN providers. They also bought a bunch of VPN review sites. Guess which VPNs these review sites recommend? Well, of course, it's the ones that company bought. And so you're not going to know any of this as a user. You're not going to know who owns the company that owns the company that owns this product. You're not going to know what company owns the website that posts these seemingly objective reviews of all these services. All you're going to know is, well, that sounds good. Let's buy that one. But as it turns out, the very service that you are using to protect your privacy could be run by some really shady people that do exactly the opposite with it. They could be spying on you. So that sucks. So of course I had to change my recommendations, but I also had to say, hey, look, there's this essential security thing that could really benefit you. Also, you never know when it's going to turn out that behind the scenes, some bad stuff happened that you were unaware of, and that has really negative consequences to your privacy. And that is also kind of a recurring theme, like the theme of everything looks great, but behind the scenes there was a hidden problem. I mean, there was an article recently about Apple's M series chips, M1, M2, M3. No M4, but this is before that, having an unpatchable security flaw that under the right circumstances could be used by an attacker to get control of your device. And like, that's pretty bad. Like it's bad enough that there's a bug. It's worse that the bug is in hardware itself and that software can't completely fix it. So those kinds of things happen all the time, whether it's a bug in hardware, a bug in software, some previously unknown flaw. If you put this together with this, under these circumstances, this bad thing happens. I had to mention a lot of those in the book. So you can never be 100% sure. You just do your best.
Joe, I'll finish up with one question that is specific to the MacVoices audience. How do you feel about Safari as a browser, as in comparison to all the discussions we've had here?
Yeah, I like Safari. Safari is my main browser when I have to use, for whatever reason, when I have to use a non-Safari browser or a Chrome-compatible browser, I use Vivaldi. There are others, I have extensive discussions in the book about, the good and the bad of this one and that one, the other one. Safari is a good browser in terms of privacy, and I talk about 3 or 4 specific features in Safari that competitors don't have that are very good for your privacy. They might not be turned on by default though. So you're going to want to go through and make sure all the settings are configured for best results. In general, privacy is great in Safari. That's not to say I don't have a fantastic ad blocker on top of Safari. That's not to say I don't also use encrypted DNS and some other things, but even out of the box, I think Safari's privacy story is, an order of magnitude better than Chrome's and significantly better than most. So I like Safari.
So the Apple users out there that are using Safari can feel good about it.
You should. And again, you should feel good about that, but also pay attention. You should go through the settings, especially the privacy and security related settings, to make sure that everything is as clamped down as you want it to be. You can allow Safari to just collect cookies all over the place. You shouldn't. You could if you wanted to. Don't. You can allow Safari to do some things that you would maybe prefer it not do, but it's solid.
I hope that we don't both come off sounding paranoid about this, because it's a very real thing that is going on. And if you haven't noticed it, notice it. As you were speaking of earlier about your discussion with your niece, I couldn't help but think about the fact that Zoom now has a transcription feature that you can take an audio recording, and feed it into, pardon me, a number of the new AI engines or large language model engines. It'll do a transcript for you, then it'll summarize it for you, it'll let you search it, it'll let you fold bend, spindle, and mutilate it, if you want to.
Absolutely.
So that power is in your hands right now, largely for free, if not completely free. So this stuff does exist.
Oh,
That's why you
absolutely.
need
And
Joe's book.
it's not even just Zoom. I mean, just a plain out of the box Mac or iPhone or iPad has accessibility features, which are a great thing. It can subtitle live video in FaceTime or whatever as you're doing it, and not only audio but also if you take a screenshot of this and open it up in Photos or whatever, you'll be able to select the word Heinz. You'll be able to copy it, like it recognizes the text in just ordinary pictures. You don't have to do some special thing like install an OCR engine and do this whole thing. No, it just happens in graphics and in videos, graphics and videos that have text in them. The text is just often recognized automatically. So this is great. I mean, it's convenient. It lets you do a lot of very handy and very cool things, but also there could be a downside. So I hear what you're saying. Like, I don't want the audience to think that we're being paranoid. I spend a lot of the book trying, even while I'm saying all this stuff, I'm trying to convince people not to be paranoid, because that doesn't serve you. And I had this long conversation with a customer who was just terrified that, like, he'd read some articles about people shoulder surfing in bars, finding out your phone's passcode, and then they mug you and they get your phone, and they'll also have your passcode, and they do this and they do this and they do this, and then there's a series of events which these things have happened, okay, and they have led to some really severe consequences. And he's like, okay, what if that happened to me, and also this happened, and also this happened, and the result was that the attacker, cleared out my entire life savings? Shouldn't I be sufficiently worried about that I jump through? And then there's this description of this elaborate series of hoops that he imagined would protect him from this. And I tried to talk him out of this. I don't think I succeeded. But I said, I don't want to say that these kinds of things don't or can't happen. I don't want to come across as being glib. I don't want to come across as just saying, yeah, just roll the dice and whatever happens, happens. It's not like that. But I do think that the steps that you take should be measured, should be calibrated to the actual risk that you might encounter and what the harm could be. And it's not just about, like, what are the odds? I mean, the odds factor into it, but are you specifically likely to be targeted? Is it the sort of thing where, yeah, someone is just like, I'm out in a bar looking for unsuspecting people whose phones I can steal? Or is it, oh, well, there's, Senator so-and-so, or there's the CEO of some company, or there's, somebody who has something in particular that I want, and so I'm going after that person. I'm going to learn everything I can about that person's habits so I know where they are and what their passwords might be and all these kinds of things. If you are unlikely to be targeted specifically as an individual, your risk profile is just totally different and much lower than if the only way somebody could do this is random chance.
What can I say? I agree with you. And I've seen recent evidence that some very, very respected, intelligent, professional people still just are missing the mark on so many of these things and need to be educated as to why it's not a good idea to do some of the things Joe's just talked about. To pick up a USB drive and that you find on the ground and plug it into a computer and say, what's going to be on this? Gee, I can't imagine. It's still mind-boggling to us, but we're reasonably very tech-oriented people, and so whether you're tech-oriented or not, though, you're going to get a lot out of Joe's book. Joe, give us the rundown on the book as we always do. How many pages, what kind of cost is there, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So as we are recording this, the book is still being edited. And at this moment, it has 205 pages. That page count might go up or down a little bit before the editing process is complete. It's in the little over 200 range, which is about 30 pages longer than the previous edition. And I even cut a whole bunch of stuff. So there's a lot of new information in here. The book is $14.99 at takecontrolbooks.com. If you had an earlier edition of the book, then depending on when you bought it, you might get the new one for free, or you will, at the very least, get a generous discount. And as always, I send out email about that, or you can log into your Take Control account on our website, and you will see whatever discounts may be applicable to you. So $14.99 for everyone else, and if I may say so, I think it's worth every penny.
Listen, if it just keeps you from having one little security breach of any significance, it's well worth it. People are spending a whole lot more money and a whole lot more time. And again, to circle the whole way back to the beginning, Joe's advice is always practical and, things that you can implement as opposed to a lot of the theoretical stuff. So, Joe, thank you. Thank you for the book. Thank you for the discussion. This is, I always enjoy this. I know I always walk away with something. I hope other folks did too.
You're welcome.
You'll be back soon, I hope.
Oh yes. More stuff is being worked on. And can I just say,
please,
if this has all bummed you out, if you're like, oh, well, I've done all the wrong things and I can't fix them and I feel terrible. Look, eat some ice cream. Ice cream solves so many problems. It's really good for your mental health, maybe not good for your waistline, but I mean, if you just need to cheer yourself up, ice cream.
That's the best piece of advice you've given today. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. We will be back with more soon. In the meantime, go to takecontrolbooks.com. Get Joe's book. This interview will not be published until it's available, so you can go right there and get it right then and start living a more private, secure life. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.